and I have a mic today. All right, so happy National Poetry Month. Hello, YouTube, and welcome all who are watching. I'm Jesse Tovar, and this is Afternoon Poetry at My Place Cafe. My Place Cafe is located within Hempstead Square, 2057 North Los Robles Avenue, Suite 10. No, YouTube just sends me on my phone. YouTube sent me a notification about my own event that I just set up. I'm like, I know, I'm talking. Anywho, let me go back. My Place Cafe, 2057 North Los Robles Avenue, Suite 10, Pasadena, at the corner of Los Robles. My Place is open every day from 7:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. Since My Place Cafe is still open during this live stream, stop by and get a coffee, cold brew, or latte. Above My Place Cafe is the Zen Den, a yoga studio ran by Jody Smith. Jody is also the founder of Magic Melon and Mama, an urban apothecary lotions and potions herbal product line, aka Wellness for the Culture. Next classes for the Zen Den are tomorrow at 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. First is Vinyasa Flow, the second is Soul Flow. Learn more about these and other yoga sessions, including purchasing some Magic Melon and Mama products at thezendenla.com. So I do have an announcement regarding Zenden. For individuals who are interested in signing up for a class while physically at the cafe, there is a sign-up sheet at the front of the cafe next to brochures, flyers, newspapers, etc. Please specify which class you will take, such as I have already mentioned, Vinyasa or Soul Flow, Community Flow, or the Sunrise Session. If you're going to take a class right then and there, Zanden staff would appreciate that you write down the class you're taking, your name, your email if you have one, and your phone number if you have one. Please make sure to have your payment method ready, whether that is cash, card, or third-party cash transfer apps such as Venmo, PayPal, etc. Please be advised there is a 15% limit for each class, and space priority will be given to those who have signed up for a class in advance online at Zenden's website or the Class Pass app. So since I did a Soulful class back in February, 15 people makes sense. When I took yoga at Cal Poly Pomona, there were roughly 70 classmates in one giant room. Luckily, we were distanced from one another. So this afternoon's featured poet is a popular request from Hempstead Square's patrons who came out of Boyos Puebla, My Place Cafe, and Domino's. Some say they know her from LA Taco, which is a news journal. Astrid is a contributing writer just like Mike Sonskin, David Romero, Nikolai Garcia, among others. Also, this afternoon's featured poet and I went to college together. We just didn't know it. So Molly Malfatu and I went to Cal State Dominguez Hills. We were in different majors, yet poetry unified us in a sense. Fatu read out our Juneteenth special here at My Place Cafe. He told me about how Astrid was a part of his Flow Poetry Club at Dominguez Hills. Bella Mercado and I went to DH together and took some English classes together. Mercado is a poet and an aspiring lawyer. She told me she's seen her around campus. Jade, Harvey, and I went to the DH, and we were in the English club together as board members. Harvey is also my co-host for some of these My Place Cafe author readings and has had a reading here herself last fall. She said Astrid looks familiar to her as a face she's come across campus. Out of all the colleges I've attended, DH is my favorite because there is a community that is formulated in somewhat genuine connections. I'll never forget the people I just mentioned, including Eric Navas, John Rodriguez, Alex Frankel, Brenda Alonso, Amanda Jacques, Fiona and Jeremy Baitang, Katie Portillo, Akona Tendahi, Lene Aguilar, Joseph Gaxiola, Ashley Smith, among others. Funny enough, John and I are mutual friends with Matthew Mejia from Nervous Skills Press because John and Matt went to high school together. Their class of 2009, I believe. I met Mejia in East LA shortly before attending Dominguez Hills. Also funny is that Lene Aguilar, Joseph Gaxiola, and I went to the same church at one point prior to attending DH, and Aguilar and I taking one class together. Now that church we once went to together has split into multiple churches, and she attends one of the new churches. While Gaxiola remains in the church where I went for their Christian school. So I'm also the class of 2009. I have mentioned some of those church names in Spectrum Publishing release parties and through some poetry and prose of mine. So, with that said, I apologize how this introduction turned into a rabbit hole of Dominguez Hill's memories. So, back to Astrid and her book, Through the Soul in My Skin. Joy begins with the term waltz. It reminds me of some of Matthew Mejia's poems that discuss dance as the act of revolving around something, or to roll into ideas, topics, and so forth. There are also some micro poems like Butterflies that remind me of one micro poem Reynaldo Macias read to us here back in January. I can totally read Red Wine in various ways, all because how certain portions of the poem are typed on the page. I shed a tear after reading Ghosted because I have been ghosted, and when I thought about it too much during the early days of the pandemic, I cried a lot to the point of being in a funk. So I heard Astrid read Ode to Astrid at LA Poet Society's One Mic, One Globe, and she says, as I paraphrase this, that this is a piece about self affirmation. I mentioned self affirmation because Carl Scott told us during their author reading last month at my place cafe that they are practicing self affirmations as of late. Plus, Astrid's ode brings me back to reading Ska's and a complete list of techniques I use to cope. Fun fact is that both Ska and Astrid have been published by World Stage Press, and G.T. Foster from Spectrum Publishing used to work with World Stage Press years back. Again, I feel that is why it was somewhat necessary to go on a rabbit hole of my memories from the South Bay and Dominguez Hills. So this afternoon, Latanya Smith, the owner of My Place Cafe, Jody Smith, the owner of Zen Den upstairs, and I welcome Astrid.
All right. Let's see. Okay, let me fix myself. All right, hey everyone. So I'm Astrid, and the first poem that I'm gonna read for you all today is titled 1111. And if you're into numerology, 1111 signifies new beginnings. Today I choose myself. I will be a healed woman who smiles in the mirror as a reminder. My hips will dance to a rhythm of hope. Trust my body is safe. Believe it is beautiful, like a dove released from its cage. I will climb out of bed on the mornings I am crumbling. Thank myself for a new day. Celebrate the 3 steps forward after 2 steps back because there is always one step still worth appreciating. There is a magenta sunset waiting, and this is a sign to see it. Progress is laughter after an insult, a deep breath before a meltdown, the fight during a flight response. I'm a shooting star fluorescent in the sky, and when I crash, I will land on Venus, rising beyond Aphrodite dreams. The indigo child rebirthed from the sea, flying on the back of a swan's wings. I will close my eyes, feel my hair blowing in the wind. Cry rivers to cleanse my spirit. The rose within me will rise from ashes to ashes, dust to dust through the soil in my skin for earth to see. The oracle in my sun, the gaze in my moon. From this day forward, I promise to have and hold myself full. Thank you. Okay, so just to share a little bit about what my book is about. So this is my first ever poetry book that I published in November of 2020. So height of the pandemic, this came out, and I put together a collection of poems that just goes through my own healing journey as I work through just finding myself and learning to love myself through the relationships that I was finding myself in. And so, as I was going through this sort of path of reflection, I came to realize that a lot of the relationships that I was involved in, I was just using them to fill a void in my life. And that void stemmed from my biological father not being present while I was growing up. And so I wanted to write a poem that commemorates that. So I wrote this poem titled Confessions of a Lost Child. I seek lost men because I'm insecure. The alcohol teaches me to swim in my own sweat, to flirt only using body. But tonight's music is sex, and when a boy named mine is the mouth I crave, two lovers become lost dancing in sync. Just us below, sunset strobe lights, a closeness we run to, tongues crashing, honeydew saliva, draining streams and a foggy kiss. Before therapy, I resented my dad through a hollow man. My father's lesson for leaving me as a child taught me sorrow, made me groan while my friends learned to play fantasy, often speaking of their fathers in a tone of hero, a false understanding. At the drawing table once, a boy shared he was empty while we colored chaos, standard trauma. But he was open, talked splitting days with parents like cutting red popsicles rationed among siblings. It's my turn. And when words switchblade to dad, I heard innocence turn into question. Where's your dad? Is he at work? I grew uneasy. I shrugged it off. Well, I don't know him. Our table silent, as grief is agony not meant for kids. Feelings I learned for bearing with necessity to protect a lost girl. I'm still searching through sharp thorns, pretending to be men. I keep begging for understanding. The reason I squeeze roses until I see blood, old wounds, callous scars, when the truth is I accept all of it. The hurt I'm rooted in from abandonment, accustomed to heartache. Thanks, everyone. So the poem is, I mean, the book is obviously very personal and very vulnerable to what I was going through and experiencing at this time in my life. And so as I was going through this new sense of awareness, even though I knew what I was doing wrong at this point, it was still very hard for me to actually make a real change in my life and start to make true progress. And I know that for anybody who is going through their healing journey, that that's a common theme that we experience also, where we do great and then we mess up and we kind of beat ourselves up for it. And so I just wanted to write something that really reminded people that that's normal and to hopefully inspire them to keep going. So this poem is titled Yearn for Love. 1. Every man I tried to love was a dream state, appearing as the soulmate I prayed for. I know it's all part of his script, yet here I am, marrying his hurt, running and chasing until we crash our bodies into the iceberg of our differences. We break apart, sinking our potential, and I tell myself, I knew this would happen. He then freezes in my memory, forcing me to let go, fading into oblivion. 2. I am dreaming of a man who does not see me. He only thinks of me when he needs my ear, my mouth, my hand. I give him body parts, hoping for his heart to come safely, like a bird with a broken wing. I give and give and give and give until I am a rag doll, left to stitch myself back together. 3. I don't know real love, how it is painted on canvas, splattered into a mess we call bold, brilliant. God, I am begging. Save me. Give me what I'm searching for. I am tired of running into different parts of my body. It has run out of space. Cries through the ache, says, I know I deserve better. Give me the strength to believe love exists. I'm willing. Please, I can't take this anymore. I'm ready to let the universe catch me. Trust fall in a puddle of pink clouds. No more pain, no more trauma. I'll watch it vanish in the same way men become ghosts. Let it all go like the first time I ran across a tall field, flew of paper kites above park trees, watched the past crumble in my palms, clench it in a tight fist, leave it up to me. It's in my hands now. 4. I see the parts of me that still linger, how they slow me down, how my mind has welcomed them. We don't always break patterns just because we want to. They become habits gifted in their return. My body doesn't even trust me anymore. It is afraid, wanting to protect me in ways I've failed before. I hope my body knows I'm sorry. I've been longing its forgiveness, praying for its peace, conjuring my inner child spirit we both buried long ago. I love my body. At the very least, I hope it knows this, if nothing else. Thank you. So, as I mentioned, a lot of these poems are not just about my relationships, but they also connect to my biological father and him just never being a part of my life. He's not someone that I ever met. And so, as I was going through this, I was seeing a therapist as well. And therapist pointed out to me that, I really needed to grieve my father in my life. And I never associated the two together because he didn't pass away. So I didn't think that that was something that required grief. And so when she pointed that out to me, um, I knew that I wanted to write about that. And so I wrote this poem titled Goodest Grief is a Red Rose. Since birth, I've filled my grief with my father's shadow. It's molded me into the emptiness of adulthood where I can't recognize a life apart. To call on grief by its name is to face the unknown half of myself, a tenderness quivering inside the tomb of my body that howls at the moon. She echoes, silence. I want to scream, but stop at my throat thinking about the photo albums we could have pieced together. The unlocked character I never uncovered but will always revel in all its mystery. How nostalgia does not exist to hold me when I need it most. How I will never know your face, the lineage tied to your last name, or a third language to teach my children. Someday, they will gather around my bed, listen to broken details about you and the stories that began in spite of you. They will wonder how the silhouette of a parent could shape a child, and I will tell them you were the dirt who bloomed me into a bed of red roses where I built their loving, protective home. Um, so towards the end of the book, I do have the poem set in chronological order of what I was going through. So the book really does walk you through my first relationship to then trying to date and figure that out for the first time in a very long time to a place of just acceptance and self-love and being happy with myself and who I am now in real time because it took a long time for me to get there. And even as I was getting to this part of the book towards the end, it was almost like I needed to write it out in order for it to manifest and for it to become my reality. And so, one of the things that I knew I wanted to come true was I wanted to believe in love again because for a very long time, I was starting to lose a lot of faith, and I just felt like if it happened, it wasn't going to happen like the fairy tales and movies that I saw. That just wasn't going to be me. And so I needed to imagine, what love looked like. So I wrote this poem called Daydreams of a Hopeless Romantic. I can't help but think it happens, just not for me. I will grow old, no husband, no grandchildren. I'll be a chain link fence too difficult to climb. But they say the right one will come someday, and each hour I shrink in my hope. I have been taught that I am my safest bet, and to find someone worthy is a needle in a haystack. Even when you win, you still expect to lose, and I refuse to be a penny rusty at the bottom of a fountain again. But I fear this is how it will end, that I won't break this cycle, and this happy ending alone won't be good enough. I want real love, a love that consumes me each morning the sun rises golden through my bedroom window, where every day is an eternal kaleidoscope. May this love focus wandering eyes. May this love feed hungry souls across the lifetimes we travel to find each other. A love that brings us peace after a stressful workday. Let this love give me a home to believe in, a fireplace to praise, somebody who brings me warm soup when I'm sick, gives me a hug and kiss after an argument. I am ready to receive a dozen roses because it's Monday. I am worthy of a diamond ring without conditions. I deserve all of it. I deserve all of it. Um, so usually I end my sets with this next poem, but I do have a few extras just because I know I have a longer set time today than usual. Um, but I did want to read this one to you all in the middle of it because it's probably the most impactful piece that I've written yet. And when I was working on this book, I didn't have this poem, and it wasn't until my editor and I were trying to figure out, how is the book going to end? What's the grand finale? And she kind of pointed out to me that I had wrote a bunch of love poems for all of these other people, but I never wrote a love poem to myself. And so she said that that's how the book needs to end. And so this is the first time that I ever wrote a love poem to me. And it's called Ode to Astrid. I want to write a poem for the women who smoke blunts in their Honda coupe, gift themselves another hit for surviving a 9 to 5. Turn up the bass when Young Thug earthquakes at a red light, then wave goodbye outside your window when the light turns green, teasing men to chase your taillight. I want to write a poem for the women who let their hair grow like an untamed lawn in a wealthy neighborhood, who still wear a white tank top and a miniskirt, flaunting bladed grass on pits and legs dewy by dawn. Show off the beauty in your golden hour shadow, the rose bush of eyebrows you bloomed all year, a tall field guarding your labia from intruders. I want to write a poem for the women who don't show emotion, numb themselves blue, who have to run inside a bathroom stall to cry. The strong women loaning themselves a rock before landsliding apart. I want to write a poem for the rude woman scolding a drunk man that grabbed her friend at a bar, who cusses like it's her love language, does not apologize for the sake of peace. You are the hammer of every glass ceiling, the roar of women who did not make it home, a threat to small men turning to stone when they see a free woman. All right. So the next few poems I'm going to share, I usually never read, but they're some of my favorite poems that I think I should read more often. And one of the poems that I wanted to share with you all, in my book, I don't know if you can see here, I only have one photo in the entire book. And this photo was created by a good friend of mine that was posted on social media. And for some reason, the image always stuck with me in my head. And I knew that I wanted to include it in the book because one of the things that I recognized as I was going through my healing journey was that, I was going through the same cycle, but in a sense, it almost felt like I was constantly dating the same person. And it was strange because no matter how different they were, it always resulted in the same exact way. And so I knew that I needed to sort of draft up this like character in my head of, this person that I continued to date and what they would look like and what they appeared to me. And so that's where the photo connects. And so this poem that I wrote is called Silhouette. I'm attracting the same person over and over and over again. A slender man morphing himself anew each time a flower sprouts in his garden. He waters her and her and her and me under the warming bug of sunlight, giving enough but not too much we dare ask for stability. When he emerges from his shadows, it is only to bask in the presence of our hair, breathing in a hint of rose for keepsakes when he needs to pass the time, when he can't stand the carbon smell of his demons. He visits his lilacs and daisies, tends to our needs, speaks, listens, plays songs we will someday hate in this memory. We should have more to say about him, but a gardener never reveals his secrets. He waits patiently for us to bloom lotus flowers as we rest in the mud of our trauma, but we continue to blossom for his attention. Promise ourselves this time it will be different when we've only known men like him. All right, so I have another poem, and this one is called Ignorance is Bliss. And I think the poem kind of speaks for itself, so I'll just get right into it. We find ourselves melting on his twin bed just as we always did every Saturday. The sun peaks its glare on his TV when his phone flashes, and my instinct is to wonder. Before I'm able to see, he places it face down. Instinct tells me to ask who it is. He says, it's just a friend. But instinct knows it's her. Lately, it's always her. I turn my head and stare at the TV in silence while my stiff aura numbs his room. My mind begins to think if there are others, how many, how often has he told them about me? I drift down a rabbit hole wandering. How does he seek women when all of me is lost inside him? I imagine if they are lost inside him too, and if we can feel each other every time we touch. Is this really instinct, or is it the woman and I speaking through his body? Maybe this is how I went missing, when I began to confuse my thoughts with theirs. When I loved him to a point he trusted I'd be blinded from this knowing. He then turns his head from the TV over to my stuck face and asks, what are you thinking about? Instinct says I should tell him, but I silence her instead. I turn to him with a slanted bow and say, nothing, I'm fine. All right. And then, so this next poem, I don't know if anybody here would know who Snow Allegra is, but she's an amazing R&B singer, and she has a song titled "Situationship." And I felt that that song really perfectly described one of my long-term.
No, what's funny about that? When I read that poem, I was thinking about entanglement.
Oh my God, Jada Pinkett Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what that was. And so I really wanted to write a poem about that because I know that for a lot of people, that's just a very common situation to find yourself in. And a lot of these poems are intended to not just be shared with everyone, my most vulnerable pieces, but it's also meant to, again, just relate to the reader because I knew that a lot of my own experiences, a lot of people had also gone through. And when I would share them in open mic spaces, they would always come up to me and tell me how much my poem resonated with them. So this poem is titled Situationship. My only memories with him are about the sex, and I admit his exhale still haunts my dreams. I look in the mirror and remember the night we made a map from our bodies, how we held each other until sunrise when we had nothing but endings to waste. The pillow talks we used for warmth inside the empty white walls of my room. The countless nights I prayed to the moon for strength as I mourned you right next to me. It was always simple, but it wasn't. We were together, but we weren't. Two lovers drifting from water to ice to a light fog one would almost call nothing. I tell myself, you just weren't ready to hide my shame of loving someone without return. I still struggle to pull myself out from under you. Maybe this is just me holding on to the heaviness. I have not felt this wanting with anyone since we last touched. Maybe I've neglected being pulled in by someone for so long. I allow myself to sink inside your memory each time a little deeper until I drown and drown and drown. Thank you. So I have one last poem for you guys. And this poem is titled Alien Girl. And I know that for most people, there is sort of like this universal experience where we just start to feel like we're all alone and we don't belong, and there's nobody that we can relate to, and there's nobody that cares for us. And even though a lot of times we know that that's not true, the mind can be a very scary place and will somehow convince you otherwise. And I know that when I was going through my healing journey, especially, that's when I felt the loneliest because I was experiencing so many emotions and unable to articulate them to anybody. So I wrote this poem called Alien Girl. I wish to be a star running across a diamond sky that twinkles like a jewel necklace. Wish to leap inside lavender nebulas, turning against the tides of reality where octopuses roam freely, and James lives happily ever after inside his giant peach. Take me to the northern lights, the emerald textiles woven by God itself. Show me where nightfall is guided by the moon and dawn embraces a new beginning. Take me where incense fills the air with my mother's perfume, where the walls color my life with the stillness of serenity, where the white picket fence stands beneath a tall crowd of red roses, where a wooden porch is sanctuary after a long day, a resting place for a cold mason jar still dewy on a hot summer's eve. Take me somewhere I can call home. I just wish to be anywhere, anywhere but here. Right. Thanks, everyone. So if you'd like to follow me, you can reach out to me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. I'm on everything at Poet Astrid. And then feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or want to talk more about the poems that I shared today. But thank you for having me.
So before I read what I prepared to close out, does anybody here have any questions for Astrid?
I just want to comment that the poems are so powerful. I just want to comment that the poems are so powerful. They touch on not only the personal, but the universal, and the language is so beautiful. And it's like image after image. It's just so amazing. Thank
Anyone else? Oh,
you.
Okay, no, what you did, I feel will heal as other people read your poetry and walk through your book and your poems, that if they can also be healing for them.
I think for you, Don. You're the CEO of Spectrum. You don't have to. I mean,
Submit.
submit. Yeah, it's Spectrum.
We will
Yes.
try to help you become world famous. We may not succeed, but we're trying to get there.
Oh my god. All right. Well, well, that was great, everyone. Great job. And thank you for reading. I'm actually happy your My Place Cafe event is now a reality. Thank you to all who are watching on YouTube. Thank you, Latanya, Jody, all my coworkers. To get in touch with Astrid, as she mentioned, follow her on Instagram. Yeah, at Poet Astrid. So last Saturday, Nicolai Garcia from Dryland Magazine was here. Since Dryland is now accepting submissions for the 12th issue until May the 4th, be with you, I'm going to read the guidelines. Well, some of the guidelines. I'll be balancing back and forth from what they posted on their submittal page to you. So the part that is going to interest everyone here, and that's the part I'm going to read first, is that for poet, if you submit a poem, you will get paid $25 for one accepted poem. If Viva or Nikolai or Ivan Salinas say they want more than one poem from you, you'll get paid $50 for two accepted poems. Again, if them three want to see more than one poem, they will pay you 75 for 3 poems. For fiction, they will pay you 100 for 1 short story. For nonfiction, they will pay you 100 for 1 accepted essay, book review, or interview. Contributors outside of Los Angeles will receive a digital copy of that Dryland 12. Contributors that are in LA or even here in Pasadena, if they go down to Rearte and Boyle Heights, they will get their print copy. So I'm gonna read more about just from what it says here on their website. So they accept poetry and prose that aim to publish the best of each genre. They look for subversive and bold voices, thought-provoking pieces that seek to illuminate a truth for the reader. They are proud to publish never before published emerging and established writers and poets. They enjoy reading and printing both English and Spanish language pieces. Let's see what else. They do not accept work that sustains the traditional white literary Western canon that has continuously ignored and poised itself as an authority over the voices of the oppressed. They do not give a voice to stories from the perspectives of cisgender, heterosexual, white, upper class males that continue in this tradition. They also do not give a voice to feminist works that only consider white female perspectives. So for poetry, submit no more than 1 to 5 poems in 1 document. So I think I read that poetry part wrong, so my apologies. 1 to 5 poems in 1 document, not in separate files. For fiction, 1 short story at 3,000 words max. For flash fiction, no more than 3 to 5 pieces in 1 document, not in separate files. If I were you, I would make sure that all my submissions that are within the 3 to 5 pieces are no longer than 3,000 words total. And the reason I'm thinking that in my head, if I were to submit again, is because Don always says for Spectrum Publishing, submit no more than 3 poems that are no longer than 150 lines. Is that in total or per each poem? Total. Oh, so they have to be shorter poems than that then. Because I have told people that they can send each poem at 150 lines.
Depends on your mathematical creativity. Think about it.
Oh, okay. My
You
bad.
have
My
a
bad.
poem that's 140 lines and 5-line poem.
Okay. Gotcha. Alrighty. When you submit on the submittable portal for Dryland 12, include a short bio of 30 to 50 words, which they say is optional. Social media links are accepted in your submission portal. Any of the following formats will be accepted. No zip files though. Microsoft Word doc, text and an email, but be aware of how the poem that you're going to submit is formatted if you do send a text in the email. A photo of a handwritten work is fine as long as that it can be seen in the picture that you take a picture of on your phone. PDF is fine as long as it's not too complicated as a file itself. So as Dryland has already mentioned, the submission period has already opened March 31st, which was like a few days ago. The deadline is May 4th. So let me see here. Let me go back down. To ask Dryland questions about their submissions, please visit drylandla.org or look for them on social media on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. All right, so everyone, I do have some breaking news. Ideas Aubrey will be reading to us on Sunday, April 24th at 1 p.m. So after he reads, Spectrum Publishing will have their big poetry slam. You should skip church and hang out with us instead. Why not, right? Alrighty, well, as soon as we end this live stream, look up Spectrum Publishing on Facebook. As soon as we end this live stream, Spectrum Publishing will kick off their annual San Gabriel Valley Poetry Festival right here. Today is the big open mic. The in-person component takes place right here, right now. If you can, please come to Woodbury Mills Robles for an amazing time, as LaTanya Smith says, this amazing festival. For now, have a great Sunday with Steve Johnson Jazz Legacy at 12:30 p.m. right here as well. And remember to make my place your place.